welcome to Scott Pilgrim versus the podcast where we take Scott Pilgrim down a peg.
Yes.
This episode, we are obliterating Volume 5 of Scott Pilgrim. It's going down. It's never going to recover from this podcast. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin. You're busted, Scott.
I'm Pete.
And as mentioned, we're going to be talking about Volume 5 of Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim versus the Universe. If you haven't read it, or if you haven't read it in a while, we're going to be getting into spoilers and talking through it. But just to mention what goes on here and get into those spoilers immediately, this is published February 4th, 2009 from Oni Press. And in this volume, Scott and Ramona have been not just dating, but living together for a while. And the cracks are starting to show in this volume as her two kind of final evil exes. There's one left, which is Gideon, but two twins are attacking Scott with robots throughout the volume. That's not even the main focus. That's mostly happening in the background. We don't even get to see any of those fights because the main thing is Ramona and Scott growing apart as they're living together. We're also checking in with a lot of our other characters like Kim Pine. Scott Sex Bob-omb has not been playing any gigs, but instead recording their album that I believe by the end turns out to be 17 minutes long or something like that.
It's great. And bad.
And yeah, by the end of the volume, big thing here, he beats the twins, but loses Ramona. Kim Pine moves out of town, and ultimately Gideon calls him out and says, I'm going to kill you. And that's where we leave things heading into the final volume of the book. So this is a big one and a really emotional one. I remember Brian Lee O'Malley saying that the last two volumes were the hardest for him, I believe, because he was trying to get all the pieces in place, figure out where all of the characters were going to end up, and start to set up the end game. So if anything, I mean, I haven't read the last one in a while, but it feels to me like this is sort of the, not to use a terrible comparison, but like the Deathly Hallows Part 1 to the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Like they're really just sort of finishing things up here. Sorry. Twilight New Dawn Part 1 to Twilight
New Dawn. There it is. Now we're talking. Now we're speaking the same language. Yeah. I was going to say this is like The Empire Strikes Back. This is where it's only bad things happening.
That's a good comparison as well. I haven't thought about that movie. What series is that in? Twilight? Harry Potter?
Yes. I think that's a Hunger Games adjacent storyline.
This is not fun. I don't like this bit.
You don't like this one. This is how we beat Scott, by not talking about it. But I mean, everyone, the focus, I feel like Scott gets to be, he's gotten better over the first 4 volumes, and he gets to sort of just be like, I did it. I'm good now. Let's sort out I just got to fight these twins. And everyone else is sort of suffering and changing and moving on or stuck in their past or something. This is very much like the orbit around Scott's volume, I feel like, setting up Scott for the final volume coming up.
Yeah, I agree with the Zalbatron. This issue is heartbreaking a little bit. I mean, the Kim Pine of it all is really rough, especially in this rereading where I was like, oh man, I didn't realize how much I was really kind of pulling for this ship until it kind of ends.
Kim and Scott?
Yeah.
Well, this book continues, this series, and maybe it's just the reread, continues to be could it easily turn into a Kim Scott story.
Because when he saves her from the cage and they have that kind of little embrace, you feel it.
It's before that,
feel it.
Because
it is before that, but it's kind of crystallized.
No. What I was going to say was like literally right before that, because what I was feeling throughout this volume is Brian is doing a really good job of driving home that maybe Ramona and Scott aren't right for each other. You know, we've been talking about how this series charts the progression of relationship, and here is where they've been living together for a while and gotten into a routine. They do kind of the same things all the time. The shine has worn off of the relationship. Scott is maybe purposely ignoring it or just being dumb about it because he's dumb about everything. But Ramona is definitely in a place where she's like, I'm in what should be a good relationship. And
and then she does that stare out the window where you're like, oh,
Right.
she's not here.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been there, right? You're in a good relationship and you feel like, hey, this is fun and this is the person I should be with. Why don't I feel right about that? And that's what I think
Right.
we're getting from
I
Ramona
haven't-
here.
I haven't felt like that.
Versus the stuff with Kim Pine. Kim Pine has hated on Scott this entire series. We found out that they were together back in the day.
I would
But
say hated in quotes, bruh.
when she is captured, not only does he run to save her immediately, but then when she is in the cage and Scott needs extra motivation to fight back against the twins, she lies and says, oh, I got a text from Ramona on my phone. She says that she loves and believes in you. And she knows exactly what Scott needs to fight back. This entire time, these entire 5 volumes, I haven't had that sense of connection between Ramona and Scott that I've had between Kim and Scott. Like Ramona and Scott are together because they're hot for each other. Like they're hot for each other's bodies, I think is like basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And
Well, there's a little
Kim
more on that, I think.
understands Scott and knows Scott and is annoyed about him exponentially, but like loves him at the same time. And I think Scott feels the same way about Kim.
Well, she never
although
got.
he wouldn't be able to say that.
She
out loud.
never got a shot, really. Scott has always been oblivious around her.
A Scott shot.
And she liked Scott, and then he was kind of like, we should be in a band together. And this whole thing started and it was awesome. And then he kind of like didn't stop and think about what he had or appreciate their connection at all.
Wait, are you saying that we're all Kim Grims
Yeah.
or Pine Grims?
Yeah,
Pine
we're all
Grims?
We're
pining
pining for
the,
Pine?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're Pine Grims. We're Scott Pilgrims.
Oh,
Pilgrims.
man, please stop. I don't know what's happening to your brain right now,
Yeah,
but please
I do this professionally.
This
I
is
come
awful.
up with ship names.
This is really
I do
bad.
this professionally.
And
I've paid a lot of money.
How much does that pay?
Yeah.
It pays in vodka. Just
Yay!
pure vodka.
Okay.
Remember
And
Bennifer?
as we know,
that
there's
was me.
different types of
Bennifer.
vodka, and they're
I did Bennifer.
Wrong podcast. Anyway, the the important thing to get through here is, I think we're all Kim Scott shippers. I think that's what you're supposed to think after this volume. But I think at the same time, it's over because Kim has left town.
Yeah, out of the band.
I don't know. Well,
But-
let's delve
wait,
into
no,
this.
no.
Yeah, hold on.
we're still here, and I want to kind of. I know we're jumping all the way to the kind of.
No, it's
middle
fine. This
end.
is literally what's happened on every episode of this podcast. We're like, let's
Okay.
do a deep dive into the volume, and then 5 minutes later, all we're doing is talking about the ships.
Okay, so when he says he apologizes for himself, and she, accepts it, and is like, that got me. I got really moved by that, and it was, he was like, there was a moment there that they could have happened, and he kind of apologized for his behavior, and I don't know if that is enough for her, but it was a real nice moment for sure.
Well, and I think because we have in our past read the final volume and we know what happens, at least in that. I think it maybe could be different with the upcoming animated series.
Oh, you think?
It could be. Because I think the point is, in our lives, we could go down multiple paths in different relationships.
Yep.
And Scott here is at that, and we can see it, but he can't. He's doing what he's doing. Kim isn't capable of letting her guard down enough to really put it out there for him, I feel like. And she sort of knows it. She sort of packs up and leaves. And so like everyone is being themselves, and it's just everyone's bouncing off each other, and it's going a certain way. So like I think where everyone's right technically, except for the knives thing. That's wrong. Pete's, that's wrong when you say
Oh, Jesus.
Well, can we talk
Christ,
about
man.
that a little bit?
You were
Because
being
I
so
do-
nice. Wait,
No, I think
He
this
said a lot there.
volume doesn't do right by Knives because we've seen so much progression from her over the course of the series.
Yes.
She has gone from, this completely naive 17-year-old to it fits and starts being like, I understand music now, and experiencing her first love and her first heartbreak. And obviously part of the joke is that she's 100% focused on Scott beyond all reason. But it felt like to me in volume 4 that she was starting to wrap her head around getting beyond that. And this volume, she takes an enormous step backwards where she is 100% focused on Scott. I still really like the stuff that happens in here with her.
Me
It's
too.
very heartbreaking, the scene where she confronts Ramona in the bathroom, doesn't know if she should tell her that Scott cheated on her
basically.
with them, and she ultimately does, and the way that she crumbles there was interesting. Justin, you're nodding your head no.
Wait,
I don't know. That
Pete?
felt a little.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
Pete's been
Jesus
waiting.
Lots of
Christ.
thoughts, lots of
Okay,
thoughts.
so yeah, there's a lot. First off, Justin dropped a bomb, but I have to deal with Alex's first. So the knives involved to defend my point is in the movie that was the Knives Cut. Scott Pilgrim realizes that the person he loves is the person that he enjoys hanging out with, the person who he thinks is his friend, and he loves his friend, and they have a lot of fun together and they fit well. That's why I liked that choice. That's why in that the Ramona didn't make sense. But to what you said before, Justin, that we in life you have these different things that kind of happen and kind of filter out. It's different when you are kind of look at all the choices from an outside perspective and make smart choices. And that's why I think the Kim Pine of it hurts the most, because they don't kind of see how well they fit together in this.
It's like how we used to have Steve, the fourth member of the comic book club.
Exactly.
We moved on.
Yeah.
But let me also say, here's what I've thought about the movie, The Knives Cut that you saw, and just to explain what that is. Pete saw an earlier cut of the Scott Pilgrim movie back in the day, and it had him ending up with knives.
Right.
Which we had maybe talked about, but not quite said that before on an earlier episode. I'm going to throw out that I think that storyline in the movie you saw was an extension of the Kim Pine romance from the books, that they poured it over to Knives because it didn't make sense. They didn't have enough time to really develop Kim Pine in the movie, and she's just sort of like a comedic character. When really the DNA of the books is that Kim is the other sort of person for Scott. And so it makes sense that they sort of
kind of opposite. They make a nice odd couple where she's kind of like, meh, but likes his sunshiny kind of doughiness to the world, and they kind of fit together and work nice.
Yeah. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Interesting theory. Well, hold on. There were a lot of different things that we threw out there that I think we should probably talk about more. Before I forget, I do want to mention I loved all the X-Men stuff in this volume.
Oh, yes. Great.
So good. Right in, I think, all of our wheelhouse. But the stuff of just cutting it on Scott being like, talking about the Australian era of the X-Men or talking about Ilyana Rasputin, I was like, I know exactly what he's talking about here. But I also love that that's a depiction of when you're in a relationship with somebody who does not care about the same stuff you do, where you're nerding out, rattling on about this stuff. And they're like, sounds good. Okay.
And they're contemplating leaving you the whole time you're talking about the X-Men.
Yes.
That's a truism. Don't talk about.
It's a little too close to home.
Don't talk about Claremont era X-Men around your partner. That's truth.
I'll also throw out there, just because we haven't said on this podcast, I always wanted, and I still want, Scott's jacket so badly. His X-Men jacket.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
yeah.
the 4.5. Shout out to Fantastic
That I
Four.
love too. Franklin Richards. 4.5.
All
Love
very
it.
cool.
Very cool. Great stuff.
Great clothes. The fashion. Every character is dressed very well in this book, and that's why.
yeah, for sure.
I've really been enjoying the back matter of the edition I'm reading, which has a ton of
yeah,
extras.
the back matter stuff is great.
Are you reading? So, okay, just to talk about the editions a little bit more, because I'm reading the original volumes, the black and white, which are very fun and have like little extras in them. But there were also the color editions / evil editions that were released individually. And then there was the color collection, which is 2 volumes at a time. You're reading the color edition, right?
Color editions. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Not the color collection, which is blown out. Yes, those are all really good and well worth picking up. I'm liking reading it in the original black and white. I looked in on the color stuff, and it feels weird to me.
It does.
I like
It's
it.
kind of insane, but
It's so vivid, though. It's colored so well. It's really great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I did want to go back and talk about the Ramona of it all, though. What do you think? Like, let's delve into this a little further. Do you think
She should have seen a doctor because her head is glowing. I mean, come on, guys.
yes, if your head is glowing, please see a doctor immediately.
Go see a
That may
doctor.
be a side effect of Lizzie
Being in love?
being in love.
Or being controlled
Do
by
you
somebody.
think Ramona and Scott should be together? I know that's the thing that we've been talking around, but I want to ask that like point blank. Pete, do
Yes.
you think yes? You think so?
I say
Justin?
yes. Like I like their relationship. I like what they do for each other. They both have different baggage issues. Obviously, Ramona's is sort of the driver of this whole series, but Scott came in with plenty and has sort of got it together, to use their words. That I think they do match each other in a nice way, I think, and I like seeing them together. It's very sad at the end of this volume when she get that haircut. You're like, oh, something's brewing here, and then she vanishes into the glow.
It activates the chip in the back of her neck there. I to answer your question, Zalbatron, no, I don't think they belong together. I think that they have cute moments together and very touching stuff. But I also think when she looks out the window and he, he's constantly in somebody else's bed. I just think it's one of those things where you can see them being together, but so far the only thing that he does is fight people well. And I don't know. I just think that it's hard also because I know what's happening. You know what I mean? If I could kind of take that out, it might be different, but I know why her head is glowing and stuff. So it's, yeah, it would be interesting because we only get one more volume and we don't get to explore what happens after they win, because that's really should they be together, because once and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, so I'll just stop talking, but if after all that goes down and then that's the real kind of.
Now, Pete, if you're in a relationship and that your partner is looking out the window, do you panic?
Oh, I panic all the time.
Is that why you spray painted all your windows black?
Yeah, it's tinfoil, on both sides.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Do you think
both
there's
sides.
a sense of, this is something that I got from the volume, and I'm curious if you guys got it as well, that there's a sense that Ramona has been waiting for the other shoe to drop the entire time with Scott and waiting for him to prove himself to be an evil ex, so that when Knives tells her, oh, he cheated on us with us, she's like, well, of course he did. Of course he's going to be an evil ex. Of
Well,
course
that
that's
whole
what's going to happen.
night when she calls him a bad person and then he wakes up and she's gone. I mean, that's sheer panic on his part because he knows
But also, like, I don't know, like the whole thing of like he cheated on us is like, well, he cheated on Knives and he, sort of fell in love with Ramona.
Well, he
that
fell
whole
in love
thing
with
is-
Ramona before the Knives thing was over. He was just
but
too
he
lazy to tell
It's
her.
not like he was double dating them. He was trying to break up with Knives the instant he met with.
Don't give him more credit than he deserves. Don't.
No, I think it's a little. To me, it was a little bit flimsy that's the whole thing. But to your point, Alex, I think she was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and this whole time up in this world, away from America, for her has been like a little vacation. And she's like, "Oh, I like this guy." It's like you meet someone on vacation. You're not gonna be like, "All right, now let's all go home together."
Some people do. Some people do fall in love on vacation. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Where are you? Who you? You're on
you on
vacation?
I'm just saying,
right
it happens
now?
all the time, man.
All right.
People fall in
Well,
love.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself living in Baltimore right now as vacation? Is that what's going on?
No, this is not a vacation.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
So, are you allowed to fall in love there or not?
Yeah, hopefully. Who knows what's going to happen?
That's a nice way to look at it.
I love it.
You got to find your Knives, Kim, Ramona, or all of them.
I'm
Real
looking for
quick,
my
just to
Kim
follow up
Pine.
on the thing we were talking about before, what is cheating? What would you characterize as cheating? Real quick, Justin, take it away.
It's a very black and white issue.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna have different answers. It's when you keep like a bunch of extra cards up your sleeve and then you just put them out when you need to. You know what I mean?
Nice.
No, I mean, I think cheating. The thing is, like, Pete, I know you're going to have a more like definitive, formal definition of it, but like in a matter of the heart like this, I think Scott didn't necessarily. I wish he had been able to tell Knives sort of immediately, but like if he meets Ramona, who he loves and dates and has sort of goes with. Like, if he had been like, okay, don't talk to her until I like clear things up with Knives, it probably wouldn't work out. The heart.
You don't know that. That's fucking bullshit, dude. Don't say that. That's not true.
I'm not pro cheating by any means, but
it seems like you are.
But I'm saying I think what Scott did wasn't this abominable thing. From Ramona's point of view, I'm surprised that is such a trigger for her that he's a bad person when it's sort of understandable, I think. And I understand why Knives think
it's not understandable. Yeah. If you're dating somebody, you can't go and sleep with somebody else. It's not that hard.
Yeah, no, I know those rules. I don't know. Have you heard about divorces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived through one, thank you.
This is a very particular
So don't
situation.
talk to me about it, motherfucker. You don't even know what it is, dickhead.
All right.
Go fuck everything you just said. Just got thrown out the window.
I thought this would be a funny discussion. This became
this is a bad idea.
Very real.
Well, I think we have very different
there is. It's you're either with somebody or you're not. And if you're not, you got to tell them you're not. It's not that hard.
I know it's not that hard, but people make that mistake constantly, and I'm saying that's human.
It's easier not to tell somebody.
But what I'm saying is it's built into human nature. It's human nature a little bit. It's not like a law.
It kind of is the law. If you're going to be with somebody, it's like a whole thing. It's like part of when you get married and say to somebody, like, I'm committing to you.
They weren't married. They were dating as 20-year-olds. He was dating a 17-year-old.
We were talking about laws, and I was saying,
I definitely don't believe in cheating when you're married. I'm talking about when you're 20. Yeah, there might be a little bit of a fuzzy line when you broke up with someone to start dating the next person.
Can I throw in here for a second? I think part of it is that, like we were talking around, Ramona is looking for that escape route anyway, whether she actually wants it or not. Like,
that's what it seems like. Scott is a end to means a little bit because she's got a creepy ex who is hard to get away from, and Scott is defeating exes left and right, so he's kind of a safe place to hole out.
Well, I think it's that, but I think also she does love Scott. Like, she says she loves Scott, and I believe she means that she loves Scott. Yes. But at the same time, in the back of her mind, it's pretty clear that she thinks it's going to fall through at any moment, and particularly in this volume.
Well, in the back of her mind is something telling her otherwise.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like she thinks it's going to fall apart. She thinks he's going to be an evil ex. And when she finds out that whatever the circumstances are, Knives tells her that he cheated on both of them, she doesn't even ask what happened. Like, she doesn't ask,
exactly,
did you kiss her? Did you sleep with her? What happened here? It doesn't matter because it just confirms to her, yep, Scott is just another bad guy in a line of bad guys. For whatever reason, she thinks that's what she gets. That's what she deserves. And I don't know. I don't actually remember much of the final volume, so I'm curious to see how much we delve into her psychology here and find out about that. That's something that I've been really wanting the entire time. And we really start to spend a lot more time with her here out on the balcony when she's with the twins, in the bed with Scott, all of these other moments, which
they're very touching, adorable moments. I mean,
no, they're not. They're hard moments. They're hard emotional moments, and I think that's good. It's good to challenge. It depends.
The night when they're drunk and he's kind of like clawing at her is adorable and sweet.
That's bad, though. It's bad because they're drunk as a way of forgetting their problems, and they end up sleeping together. But it's only because they don't remember what's happening. And when they wake up in the morning, they remember all of it, and it's even worse.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is don't drink alcohol, kids. It's bad.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Some
Especially
of the other...
not your 20s when it's fun and you can bounce right back.
Yeah. No,
That's the worst
definitely
time
wait till you're mature.
Yeah.
Wait until you're like this close to death, and then try it for the first time.
And then
Yum,
try
yum.
it once.
Push you over the edge. Speaking, everyone's sort of having a bad time. There's just a malaise over this whole book. The band breaks up. Steven Stills looks like shit the whole book.
Man, does he?
Do you know who is having a good time though? Is Wallace seems to still be having a great
Wallace
time. He's
is
got
definitely.
a boyfriend.
Well, what's the deal with the boyfriend's name, Mobile or Mobile?
I don't know.
What is that?
Like Boost Mobile?
I don't know. I feel like I'm missing a joke with that name.
Something, yeah.
I feel like I'm missing a joke, and I don't know what it is.
I think it's just like insert dude here type of.
Yes,
normal
but we get to see
rotation.
him, and he's cool, and he is like he works on the astral plane and all this stuff, which is really fun. It's just the name I don't quite. I feel like I'm missing a piece of a joke, and I wish I knew what it was.
Yeah,
but I really love like young Neil is like awful in this.
Oh my God.
Can we
There's
talk
a great
about this?
line.
Young
Poor
Neil's
young
in the
Neil.
corner smoking.
Oh
just
my
being
God.
Like, what do you want?
See, you love young Neil, Alex, and I'll
I
tell you
do
what,
love
I
young
like.
Neil. And his poor bedroom, like there's spider webs in it. He hasn't moved for several volumes at this point. Poor guy.
I like you're an asshole, and he goes, "I'm young, I'll grow out of it."
Oh, sick burn.
Justice for young Neil. That's what I have to say
Wow.
on this podcast.
I did think it was really funny. The robot has joined the party. That was a fun bit.
Very fun. Let's talk about the video game references. We get a lot of. If we get Double Dragon on the inner title page, which love that. Twins as a villain is just a classic RPG or any sort of game thing.
Yeah.
The larger and larger robots is fun. I love the setup of the. I think it's Legend of Zelda: The Adventure of Link. Scott in the mirror, the shadow Scott.
Yeah.
I love seeing that there as a video game reference. Just a lot of great, solid refs here.
Yeah, and Scott keeps winning things that don't actually mean anything, like he wins his birthday and then he wins the party and other things. Also, the party themes were very funny. I'm forgetting what they were exactly, but...
we get the Umbrella Academy costume, right? For Scott?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I think so. Wait, which one?
The suit with the mask,
Oh, okay, there you go.
right?
Could be.
Skinny tie?
Maybe. I don't know. The Day of the Dead costume that he's wearing?
Yes.
Okay.
But his isn't really Day of the Dead. It's like a suit with a
it's
skinny tie and a mask.
Yeah.
Like
Also, Ramona's costume, I think Ramona's costume is very Mystique as well, like the classic like necklace of skulls thing that she had going on. So that was very fun.
Very fun.
I also really like the little cat. It was adorable.
I wanted
Gideon?
to ask about that. What is
You like Gideon?
Well, I thought
So-
the cat was like adorable the way it was just kind of in different corners and stuff.
So there's a cat named Gideon who Scott is trying to track down and feed, and he keeps leaving food out for it, and ultimately it does come back and eat. What is the purpose of this cat in the volume? What's your take?
I think it's just a shout out to cats where they have this evil agenda. You try to feed them and take care of them, but they're kind of like just ruling over
Just a
your
shout
life.
out to cats.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of like we get to see him trying to do anything to hold on to Ramona, even like trying to take care of this thing that is like working for Gideon, like an evil cat for an evil bad villain.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know if we know that the cat is working for Gideon. Maybe that is something in the final volume that I just don't remember, but
Well, it's named Gideon.
I know. But
Yeah, but
the
that doesn't
names
mean
are
it's
names.
working for him. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, makes
I'm
a lot
not
of
named
sense,
after my boss.
You're not?
You're not yet, but eventually you'll change
Not
your
yet.
name.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I do think you're absolutely right in terms of it's trying to hold on to some vestige of Ramona and trying to deal with it in a different way than completely falling apart after he and Envy broke up. We get to see a big difference here where he's still losing it. He's crying during the onions. He's crying to Wallace. He can't really hold it together in his job or anything like that, and everybody knows it. But he's not just hiding out in Wallace's bedroom in the bed the entire time. He's going out. He's doing things. He's interacting with
He's
people.
active.
He's trying to leave Sam and Nigiri for this cat and goldfish crackers and other things that are contextually appropriate. So he's trying to grow. Like, I think you touched on this a little bit towards the beginning of the chat, Justin, but there's a real sense of growth from Scott in this volume. He is not a completely different person, but really moving towards being an adult. He's 24. We start with his birthday. That's starting to get on the cusp of out of that period of like, what do I do with my life, to decide what you're doing with your life and move forward in some way, in some aspect. And that's what we really get, I think, here emotionally and thematically, which I really liked quite a bit. Pete, any other, or Justin, any other moments you want to call out?
I mean, I just, I agree with what you're saying a little bit, but I just feel like 24 is not really, you're not really an adult yet. I mean, you got.
When are you an adult? When are you an adult who is allowed to cheat? Go ahead, Pete.
Oh,
nice.
go
65.
No,
65.
You're never allowed to cheat.
You retire into adulthood.
Whenever it is, right on your deathbed, you have your first drink of alcohol, then you cheat on your spouse.
Oh my God.
At that point, anything goes.
You die.
Yeah. I want to shout out some of the back matter stuff in the volume, the color edition volume. We get some great for the local heads over here. We get a limited edition poster that that Brian Lee O'Malley made for the release at Hanley's.
Yep.
Hanley's Universe here in New York, and the R.I.P. rocket ship, the comic book store that used to be on Smith Street in Brooklyn.
I love your rocket ship.
Yeah. There's a great poster has the rocket ship name and address on it. He talks a little bit about his process, and he does thumbnails. He writes everything first, which is a little bit abnormal, and then he does inch-high thumbnails. That small, so he doesn't go into too much detail and waste too much time making these absolutely disposable things for no reason, which I thought was really interesting. Hilarious. An inch high, that is so small. And that's where he just does like the layouts and, puts in like, I'll put the word balloons here and here. And the other thing I really liked is there a page of Kim and Ramona, and a line from Kim, just that was a doodle, basically, her saying, maybe we can get, if we're still hanging around in 10 years, maybe we can get married. And I think that's a clear conversation that Kim is something she's saying to Scott, the classic thing to say to the person you like, but you're not willing to come out and say it.
Well, can I throw something out here on that note? This is probably a little too early for it, but when we were at Baltimore Comic-Con, we talked to Hunter Goranson, the head of Oni Press, and asked him, next year is the 20th anniversary of Scott Pilgrim. Are there any plans? He talked a little bit about the Netflix show and thought it was really amazing. And then he said, and yes, we are aware that next year is the 20th anniversary. And he said it in a very,
let's do it.
It seems like he doesn't have anything planned at all.
No plans.
Wink.
Zero plans.
No plans.
Well, what do you think? Let's speculate wildly. Does that mean just a even more color edition of Scott Pilgrim, or does it mean a legit continuation of the book in some way?
Everyone who bought a copy of the book gets mailed a gold coin. I think that's what's that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
That'd be very expensive. I think it's time for I would think that a 20-year anniversary, especially tied with the launch of the show, makes a lot of sense to announce and release a sequel series that is Scott and whoever is around. They've gotten maybe 10 years older, whatever year you want to put on it, they're going to be older, and we're going to get to see where they are and maybe get a little story. I think that would be lovely.
Or do they go like Muppet Babies, where you see them all as kids? You know what I mean?
Not necessary. They're basically Muppets as they are, and we've seen them as kids over the course of the run. So,
absolutely.
Because I also think, and I don't know why I think this, and was this in some sort of press release? The animated show is going to be different than the book, and I think it's going to go a little bit beyond the story in the book.
I think some capacity. Wishing that's true. I don't think
it's happening. It's happening. I saw it in, I think, a press release.
It is. It's in a press release, and also Hunter Goranson told us that it's going to be an expansion and extension of the graphic novels and the movies.
So in my face,
it's right. In my face, outer space. All right, that is it. This time, I think once again we have lost versus Scott Pilgrim. What a bummer.
But next time,
one more volume.
We're going to get
volume to get this right. If you'd like to support this podcast and all the podcasts we do, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Facebook and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Scott Pilgrim. Apple, Android, Spotify, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live on TikTok and Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Next time, it all comes down to this, the final battle between our podcast and Scott Pilgrim.
Yes, and then ours will continue as we talk about other stuff and then the animated show. But in the meantime, let's all do what we said and go out and kiss a bunch of different people and keep it a secret. And keep it a secret.